Good afternoon again. It is truly a blessing to be here with you today. Anne introduced me as the executive director, which I am in title, but the boss of Human Life Alliance is the Holy Spirit. Would you please join me in asking our Blessed Mother's intercession? In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Holy Spirit. Well, this is my first time in London. It's quite a thrill. And as Anne said, Human Life Alliance was formed in 1977, although the founders of the organization go back to the 60s. It was apparent at that time what was happening in our country, and they started out actually trying to influence the country politically. After a few years, they realized that this wasn't going as quickly as they had hoped that it would. So several of them left the organization they were with and formed Human Life Alliance, feeling that the answer to this would lie in education. Certainly not to say that the political arena should be ignored, not at all, but they wanted to focus on education. In 1990, we produced our first publication. Some of you have some of them, and unfortunately, not all of them arrived with us. So I am going to go through some of them, and unlike some speakers, I do not mind at all. In fact, I encourage you to go through them as I do. It will not be distracting to me at all. We, again, produced our first publication in 1990, and that was called She's a Child, Not a Choice. A writer in California saw the publication and said, since at that time, and still, we know that those most in danger of abortion are in the 18 to 24 year age range, where can we meet most of those people? Where can we access most of those people? And it was on campuses, college campuses, high schools. So we started our campus outreach program, and since the press is not friendly to us typically, to put it mildly, we decided to beat them at their own game, and we paid to insert these in college newspapers. At this point, we've reached about 163 million people. We've been on all 7 continents, and yes, that includes Antarctica, but it's not the penguins, it's the science stations there. You will notice in most of the publications there's nothing religious in them, and there is nothing political in them. And that's done for a reason. That's not because we don't know where our strength comes from. We pray every day as a staff. But that allows us to teach the students and others how to debate the pro-life questions from a secular point of view. For all of us in this room, we can say, God says that's not right. It's not in accordance with his plan. But we do not live in a world that agrees with us many times. So we are here to give people the tools to use to debate the life issues and to change hearts, which will save lives. In addition to the publications, we produce a lot of other things. We have stickers, tattoos, posters, window clings. I'll talk about those things later. But what I hope to do today is to tell you what we do and to hopefully point out ways that we can serve you in the work that you do and in your outreach. So the first topic, we have 3 outreaches. They are abortion, euthanasia, assisted suicide, and chastity. And you've already had some wonderful speakers on some of those topics, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on some of that, but I will go into detail about the publications and some ways that they can be used. The first one you should have, and it's called I Care. There's a young blonde woman on the cover. And some of the articles in there you'll find on page 3, A Father's Regret. We find that we've reached the point where men are pretty discounted. They're told they can't have children, so they should have nothing to say about this, as if men don't have a right to protect their own children. So that's A Father's Regret, and there's also an article under that by Dr. Angela Woodhull who actually did try to have an abortion. She didn't get there, quote, in time. We know that she got there in the Holy Spirit's time, because she was not able to have that abortion, and she went on to be very successful. So that's a note of encouragement to young women and older women as well. The abortion methods, that's very important. Even today, people don't realize what abortion is. They really don't understand how it happens. They certainly don't understand the aftermath. The centerfold, you'll find the development of the preborn child. Now, I could not make this up, because people agree, or people have accused us in the past of making this up. They don't know basic biology. We had to go back and add even more documentation to this, something that they can find in any medical book, but they just don't know enough about their own bodies and about biology to even know the development of the preborn child. Breast cancer, I encourage you to read the article by Dr. Lanfranchi. Angela Lanfranchi is a surgeon, and she is one of the top authorities. If you have any questions on this, she is very reachable by email. The information in there, contact us by email, call our office. We can give you information in order to help you reach her. This is her life's work, and she's very, very knowledgeable. We have been very blessed to have, I believe, some of the best writers around. Reproductive racism. In the U.S. and all over the world, we know that minorities are being targeted, that third world countries are being targeted, and this article written by an African-American woman, brings in the targeting that's done in their community. We also have another article or another publication that brings in the targeting that's been done in the Hispanic community. We know in our country that immigrants are being targeted. That's what this article is all about. Adoption, rape and incest. We have a former co-worker by the name of Jenny who was conceived through rape. She tells a very moving story of being 13 years old, and she knew the nature of her conception by this time, had known for quite a while, and her birth mother raised her. They are both very powerful speakers. Her mother, of course, the person who was raped, and Jen, who was conceived through rape. And she said when she was 17 years old, people would say to me, I don't believe in abortion except in cases of rape and incest. And she would think, that's me that they're talking about. And finally, when she was 13, which I find pretty incredible, I don't think I could have done this when I was 13, but she found the courage to speak up and say, that is me that you're talking about. And again, it's education. When people can put a face to rape, when people can put a face to incest, all of a sudden, there's another person here who isn't being considered. The science of sex, we use in there, we talk about oxytocin and vasopressin, and I don't care if you're 14 years old or if you're 50 years old and you think that you're absolutely in control of your life, there is biology involved here. And we use the duct tape experiment, which many of you may know, where we talk about if you were to duct tape your arm to someone else's arm, and then you tear off the duct tape, ouch, you're going to have skin, you're going to have bits of hair, you're going to have debris on that duct tape. The next time you duct tape yourself to someone else, it's not going to stick as well. And as you continue to do that, pretty soon you're not sticking at all. So there is a biology involved in relationships, and that's what's pointed out in this article. One of the other articles in there is SLED, and I don't know if you're all familiar with SLED. With that, it's a very strong argument. It stands for, the S is for size, L, level of development, E, environment, and D is degree of dependency. Now, let's just take degree of dependency. If I have a 5-year-old child, if I have a 4 or 5-year-old child, certainly even the most hardened pro-abortion folks would call that child a person. But if I were to leave that child alone in a Minnesota winter outside, that child is probably not going to survive. Our level of dependency should not be a deciding factor on whether or not we're a human being, whether or not we're a person. And then we have, on the last page, we have the arguments, and that can be very helpful. That can be very helpful for you, for all of us. Back to the publications themselves, they're designed graphically to catch the eye. We know that if they don't catch the eye, especially the young people will not open them. My first months on the job, we had, our publications typically had babies on the front of them. And people like babies. Well, the feedback we were getting is that if there are babies on the cover, first of all, the boys and the young men aren't going to open them. And secondly, the people who are pro-abortion aren't going to open them if they're obviously pro-life. So we changed we changed our tactics, and we started making publications that are not obviously pro-life. And we'll get emails saying, you tricked us. We thought it was, whatever. Well, yeah, welcome to the world. We meant to trick you. We want you to open this. Once they open it, we carry through. I Care is our theme this year, and as you can see, it's environmentally based because that's what's very important to the young people right now. But when they open it, they see that the most endangered species is the child in the womb. So every year we rewrite this. We're in the process of rewriting it right now, and it'll have a different cover. A lot of the articles will be the same, but it'll have a different cover, a different theme. Since we work with a lot of older people who are our donors and support us in other ways, the first time we came out with a publication that did not have a baby on the cover, we got calls saying, what are you people doing? But once we explained it to them, they understood, and it's been very, very successful. It's been very successful for us. Did you know? You don't have Did You Know? I can hold it up and I can hand it down. This is a publication that was written with us by African Americans for African Americans. We've had a lot of feedback on this publication. It's been very powerful. I have certainly been out on the sidewalk in front of abortuaries One Planned Parenthood I can think of was in Sacramento, California, and 95% of the people going into that abortuary, this particular abortuary, were people of color. This publication allows me to say things that my complexion does not allow me to say. It gives me credibility. The foreword is written by Dr. Alveda King, who is Dr. Martin Luther King's niece. And you immediately have the attention, because this says this is something for community. The very powerful graph on the back of the publication, and that is showing that HIV, violence, accidents, cancer, and heart disease combined do not add up to the number of deaths in the African American community that abortion does. This is why we call the back page the other front page, because you never know how someone's going to open the publication. The advisors, we worked with many advisors from the African American community. We said this is not going to happen. Even though it's desperately needed, we are not going to do it unless it's written by them, for them. We are not going to have 4 white people in Minnesota advising the African American community. That doesn't even make sense. So we have been very, very blessed to work with wonderful writers on this publication. And certainly we know many lives have been saved. We get emails and phone calls all the time telling us about people, particularly from sidewalk counselors. I'm not sure if that's what you call them here. But they're people who have prayer vigils and try to do saves in front of the abortuaries. And they will tell us about handing out the publication and people literally turning around and choosing life for their child. And that's our goal here. In the schools, we want them to produce debate. On one campus, we had a debate going for 6 months. We want them to produce debate because, again, they're buying into the lies that they've been told for so many years. I'm going to move fairly quickly through. The next one is AIS una niña, for all of you Spanish speakers. Pardon my accent here. This is written for the Hispanic community, for the Latino community. Same thing, we partnered with Human Life International, Vida Humana, which is the Hispanic arm of Human Life International on this, and advised us on colors, on graphics, most importantly, did the translation, and they did an international translation. In this publication, we have intentionally placed a couple of articles that can be swapped out. So if this publication goes into Bolivia, for instance, they can take these 2 articles out and they can insert 2 articles that are specific to their country. So we try to make it as usable internationally as possible. One important, I want to throw some encouragement in here too from time to time, that we got a call this year, this particular year, more than $1 billion, a billion with a B, had been put into Latin America by the pro-abortion industry and sympathizers. We got a call that there was going to be a vote in Uruguay. Now, we are very far from a billion-dollar organization, let me tell you. And they needed the publication, they needed something immediately to try to stop this vote. And for us to send publications internationally, the cost is really prohibitive. But what we can do is we can send the file electronically and give permission to use that file. And individuals in the particular country can print it there. It's much, much cheaper to do it that way. And that's what we did. Well, I won't tell you the whole story. It's a happy ending. It was very successful. But the bottom line is we just talked about more than $1 billion for $2,200. That vote was turned around. It's only with God that David beats Goliath, and we know that. So don't ever be discouraged that we don't have the money that the abortion industry has. Don't ever be discouraged. Okay, She's a Child, Not a Choice. You have that one. This is not the original She's a Child, Not a Choice. The reason that we have printed another She's a Child, Not a Choice is because this is our 20th anniversary of our first publication, and we wanted to give it the same name. And we wanted to honor the woman whose foresight resulted in the first publication. This really was, this you see does have a baby on the cover. And that's because this was written primarily for people who are already pro-life. For churches, pro-life groups, people who want to learn more about how to talk about the pro-life movement. We also wrote this to focus on the personhood of the unborn. When Roe v. Wade was passed in the United States, the court said, we don't know when life begins, we don't know that this is a person, so the unborn has no rights. There is a very big movement going on in the United States right now regarding personhood, trying to get it on the ballot in many different states. And to focus on the personhood of the unborn child is part of this, and also we wanted to produce something that is that's available for the churches and pro-life people to use. Again, you'll find SLED in there. You'll find articles on personhood and the law, and disability rights. This is very important. We have articles on disability rights. I would call your attention to the article on page 5, Peter's contribution. And Prenatal Partners for Life is a fairly new organization, very, very powerfully run. Mary actually happens to be in my parish, and so I know her personally. And what they do is they partner. If they will work with an individual or a couple that has had an adverse diagnosis. They will pair them with another couple that has gone through the same thing. They will mentor them. They will stay with them through the pregnancy, after the pregnancy, provide them with information, with support, prayer, of course, mostly important. And just an organization that I can't say enough about because we haven't, and please correct me if there are others. I believe there is another one at this point, but Prenatal Partners for Life was the first one that I was aware of. So we have an article in there and on that. And they have grown very quickly because there's such a need. Again, we have the abortion methods in there because we find even the pro-life people don't realize what the abortion methods are. We still have people who argue with us all the time that abortion in the United States is not legal through all 9 months, and it certainly is. But people are just not knowledgeable. Abortion Boom or Bust talks about the economic effect of abortion and the population dearth. Very, very interesting article, and Certainly, if you connect to the information in there, you can get a lot more information on that. Sometimes it's very frustrating for us and for our writers because we try to pack so much into this, and so their articles have to be smaller than we would like for them to be. But it gives you the idea, and you can get more information on our website. By the way, that's humanlife.org, and the website is in all of the publications. Stem cell research, in vitro fertilization, very much in the forefront now. People need to know about that. They need to know what it is. And the back page is persons, not property. Walter Hoy is a Baptist minister from Oakland, California. He went to jail. They wrote a bubble law for him that said that he could not be, if he was within 100 yards of the abortuary, he could not be within 8 feet of an individual. So they were going to get him. There was no doubt about it, because if I'm talking to you and I'm 8 feet away from you and you say, yes, I would like to have that, and I do this, I'm no longer 8 feet away from you. So it was just a matter of time. He went to jail. He has lost his church, his pastorship at his church. He's out of jail now, and he's a wonderful man who has done a great deal of service for the pro-life organization. Wrote a very good article on persons versus property. Euthanasia, you've already had an excellent presentation on euthanasia, so I'll just call your attention to the publication. It's called Imposed Death, and that's on euthanasia and assisted suicide. We get a lot of calls on that. Usually they're at the last minute asking for help, and it has articles in here. We tried to cover as much as we possibly could. It's a very, very big issue, as you heard earlier this morning. And we try to use a little bit of humor whenever possible. These are not humorous topics, but on page 7 you see the cartoon that with the man laying in the bed and a head of cabbage, and it says person, vegetable. Any questions? As your previous speakers said, people don't become vegetables, 2 different species. Of course, you're probably familiar with the Terry Schiavo. We were involved with the Schiavo, or I'm sorry, the Schindler family when Terry was being euthanized. And interestingly enough, Michael has just gone after the family again. The man doesn't give up for using her name. Prayer is needed there. Fact or myth? A lot of facts, a lot of myths about abortion, or I'm sorry, about euthanasia. Follow the Money talks about fetal care. When you probably know, when you start hearing the term fetal care, that's the time to look for help. The cost, because the cost of the suicide cocktail or terminal sedation, which was spoken about earlier today, is much cheaper than keeping a person alive. So I won't go into detail there. I'll let you read the articles. But there's tremendous pressure all around the world for euthanasia. I always say that when life is cheap on one end with abortion, when as a culture we've been taught for so long that life is cheap on one end, it must be cheap on the other end. And that's what's happened here. Not Dead Yet is an organization, and the writer, Allison Davies, I have tremendous respect for her. And the disability rights folks really are a strong voice when it comes to euthanasia, because they see themselves as being targeted next. They're targeted now. So very, very good there, information. The one I really wanted you to see and Greg asked me to talk about didn't make it here, so I'm going to hold it up and tell you about it. It's a flip magazine, and it's called Just for Girls, Just for Guys. And it's written at about the high school level, and it is on chastity. The articles in that we have dating do's and don'ts, ways to keep safe, and I thought it was important also to say, we're not targeting boys or men here. We talk about to girls about how to keep themselves safe on a date, but we also say to the guys, don't get yourself in that situation where you can be accused of doing something that you didn't do. So we put a lot of information of what do real guys want. We have a quiz in there. The kids always seem to like quizzes, and ask the doctor. One of the things that was done with this publication, and there are so many stories I can tell you, but time just doesn't permit. We got a call from a pro-life organization that was located right next door to a teen clinic where they were handing out condoms and everything that goes with it. And so they called us and they asked us to make posters. They were about 5 feet in length. And they took these posters, and they wanted the posters of the Ask the Doctor pages. So we made them the posters. They took the posters, and they put them up in their windows. So every time the kids passed on their way to this other clinic, they got a good dose of the truth. Again, they were colorful, they were eye-catching, and they caught the kids with these, and then of course had publications to hand out to them and to serve them in other ways. Another, not this publication, but we got a call from some sidewalk counselors in the state of Illinois who were, they had came up with another bubble law there, and so this law put them far enough away from the front door so that a train came between them. And obviously when the train came, which was several times a day, they were cut off. They could not reach the women and men going into the abortuary to try to help them. So they gave us a call, and they decided that they would, as the saying goes, turn lemons into lemonade. They ordered our publications, and when a train came, they realized that there was a whole lineup of cars that couldn't go anywhere. So while they couldn't get to the front of the clinic, they certainly could get to the people in the cars. So they went out and they bought roses, and they went, every time a train would come, they would go down the line of cars, they would hand them a rose, and they would hand them a pro-life publication. And I don't think there's too much that's much more boring than waiting for a train to pass. There's really not much to do in your car. So they would open up the publication, they'd read the publication, they've got the rose, kind of a peace offering. And there are, I mean, truly, I could do hours, I promise you I won't, on the ways that people have come up with to use educational material. So again, don't be discouraged. We know all of the things that are thrown against the pro-life movement and individuals, and there are ways to get around them. Again, I repeat, Human Life Alliance is here to serve you. If there's anything that we can do, please contact us. This is not about Human Life Alliance. This is about all of us working together to save lives and to help those in need. Unfortunately, I only have one of these. The boys' side goes into pornography, how it rewires the brain, facing the challenge, how do you stand up against your friends who who are sexually active and think that there's something wrong with you because you're not. A second chance if you have not been, if they have not been chaste, if they have fallen into that, encouraging them that they can turn their lives around and giving them support, offering them support. So the best thing that we can do, well, I know you're ahead of me on this, the best thing we can do for our children is fasting and praying. Additionally, parents are the primary educators of the children, and we know that they don't need birth control. They need to be encouraged to respect themselves and to respect others. And the message that they can control themselves is very important. We have a whole culture telling them that they can't control themselves. Of course they can. We need to respect them enough to tell them, not only tell them that they can, show them that they can, show them that we care, show them that we support them. I love to take this magazine when I'm at, they're handed out at Christian rock concerts, other rock concerts as well, wherever you'd find a gathering of young people. And I love to find a couple that's kind of entwined and march in between them, you know. My age allows me to do that. They just think I'm lost. And march in between them and hand them the publication. And one couple I remember, I handed the girl a publication and the guy started laughing at her and said, oh, yeah, girls need that. And then I flipped it over and she said, you read that. So you can have some fun with it too. Life Begins is a publication that we wrote for children because we didn't have anything for the little ones. There's nothing in this that would violate anyone's innocence. We find actually that some of the teenagers like it too, simply because it's a comic book, but it's on the development of the preborn child. So that being said, I'd like to talk a little bit about tattoos. We have a tattoo, and you can't read it. You'd have to look at it in a mirror till it's on, and it says "Live Pure." Parents don't mind the tattoo because it's going to come off with some cream, and the kids like it because it kind of looks cool, and the parents also like the message there. But what I will say to you is the real value of this tattoo, if you are tabling at an event and you want to draw kids in, first of all, you've got that girl or boy for about 45 seconds. And you would be amazed what you can say in 45 seconds because it's going to take you that long. You're going to rub them off with alcohol. You're going to put the tattoo on. You're going to hold it there. You're going to put a cloth over it. And you can drag it out if you want to, depending on your conversation. But you're going to have them there for about 45 seconds. When you're done with them, you hand them some pro-life literature, and then they go out and I just seem to have a thing with this. And then they go out back out into listening to the bands or whatever they're doing, and they're walking billboards for you because they're not going to see this tattoo anyplace else, and kids love tattoos. And they're going to ask them where they got the tattoo, and they're going to send them over to your table. So we do what we can. This is an old piece that we've had for a long time, and you can't see it very well, but there are a lot of them back there. It's called Everyone's Biology. And it is simply that. It's everyone's biology, but we had an incredible story on this. I should back up to say that the publications, these things, I just take them and drop them everywhere. The doctor's office, the seat on the plane, any place you are, because they will do their work. Don't ever worry about a piece of pro-life literature that you think is just going to be thrown away, because it has a job to do. A man came up to me a few years ago at the March for Life in Washington, D.C., and he said, "Oh, you're the people." We get that a lot. You're the people. They know our publications, but they don't know our name necessarily. He was at the March for Life a couple of years before that, and one of the now bear in mind, regardless of what the media does not say, there are hundreds of thousands of people at the March for Life in Washington, D.C. This was on the ground. Goodness knows how many people had walked over it. This man bent down and just caught his eye, picked it up, put it in his pocket. He had a prison ministry. So sometime after that, he went to the reformatory, and it was girls. It was teenage girls. And there was a girl there who was pregnant. She had been quite mistreated by the other inmates there, and she was pregnant, and she was planning to have an abortion. He found out about it, and Holy Spirit brought her up in front of the girls that he was speaking with and had her stand next to him. This was the exact stage of development of her preborn child. He took this and he placed it here, and he said, "This is what is growing inside of her." They had no idea. They said, "We thought it was a blob of tissue." How often have we heard that? We thought it was a blob of tissue. Well, she gained new status. They brought her into the fold, treated her well. About a year later, he got an email with a picture of the baby, saying that she had saved her. He saved her baby with this tiny piece of paper. We got an email from a girl on the West Coast, I don't remember exactly where, said, "Got a boyfriend, really care for this boyfriend. He's told me that tonight we're going to bring this relationship to a different level or we're done. I really care for him. I don't want to lose him." She didn't want to lose him, but she didn't want to go there either. She said, "I was walking across campus and a piece of paper." Now, she's saying a piece of paper. She's not saying the entire publication. She said, "A piece of paper blew into my foot. I reached down to see what it was. I picked it up, and it was from our publication. I don't remember which one it was. And it was the article on chastity. Just one piece of paper out of the publication. She picked it up, she read it, and that night, she said, that night, I took it with me, I brought it to my boyfriend, and I asked him to read it. He read the article, and he said, you're right, we're not going to do this." So I say this in encouragement. Don't worry about those that are thrown down. Don't worry about those that you feel may be torn up. Someone may have torn this up. Someone may have seen it, been very pro-abortion, or been post-abortive. Certainly we know people who are post-abortive have a very difficult time with this. We'll never know. But it got where it needed to be when it needed to be there. So I encourage you, don't ever worry about that. Other things we do. Posters. Again, you'll see this, get your head out of the sand. We can create posters for you. We can personalize them for you. Oh, I have to show you this one because this is one of my favorites. Another organization asked us to make some posters for them for Valentine's Day. And just this kid, with this kind of starstruck look on his face, holding up this Valentine heart and flowers. And it says, "I promise to give you HPV, chlamydia, an unplanned pregnancy, and a broken heart. Want to have sex?" Then, not to play favorites here, the girl. I pledge to you my undying love, my undetected HPV and HIV, and a lifetime of heartache after aborting your child. Want to have sex? Same thing with this girl. And then we have a young man who says save sex for marriage. We also have the marked for death. This is because of the gender selection. So that's a very powerful. And this has always been, to me, very poignant, I think, just because of the child and the way he looks. The state of South Dakota had some battles going on there, and they tried the abortion industry tried to take the focus off of abortion and make the focus rape and incest. And so this says, this is a child, a very somber child, who's looking at you and saying, I do not deserve to die for the crime of my father. I am not an exception. So whatever the situation is, these publications don't do any good sitting on our shelves. They're to go out, and they're to serve those of you who are the hands and the feet of the pro-life movement. Anything, again, that we can do to help, I encourage you to contact us. Some of you may be aware that the current U.S. administration is not particularly friendly to us. They have, in the past, labeled us as needing to be watched, as being potential terrorists needing to be watched. Well, the terror takes place in the hospitals, in euthanasia, in the womb. We are not the terrorists, but I will say to them, if you think we need to be watched, I advise you to watch us closely, because we are not going away. Thank you.